Hello and welcome back to Rise Gaming in a new Baldurs Gate video. Today we're about to talk more useful or interesting things that you didn't know you could do in this massive game. Once again, I'd like to quickly thank the many people who got involved and dropped their own tips and ideas in the comments of last time. And of course, I'll be crediting everyone that I learned anything from in those comments. But of course, I also have my own tips today too. With that all said though, let's get into it. Our first thing today then is all about disguise self, or in this case I'll be using seeming, which is the same thing but AoE. Now using these types of disguise spells is incredibly powerful because obviously you can turn yourself into someone else, which can be very useful if you're dealing with people who know who you are and you don't want them to know who you are. But you can always adjust, like you have all of this insane amount of options, and that can actually be just specifically useful for swapping to the correct race of who you're about to talk to. An obvious example would be Githyanki, who are a little bit rude to people of their not the same race. And it's not exactly true that a Gith will speak nicely to a Gith, but they'll be a lot more welcoming, let's say, and open up other opportunities of conversation. But you could also go further than that obvious use and turn yourself into specifically a small race. Gnomes are probably going to be your best bet for that in specific because they're one of the smallest options you have. The reason to do this is to squeeze into the smaller gaps and holes that most races just can't fit through. But what if we do something even better? What if we take enlarge and reduce and then shrink ourselves like so, now we're smaller, and then disguise and go into gnome form? I'm now even smaller. I'm like an ultra small gnome in this specific case. Here's a perfect size comparison. I'm just slightly bigger than this bucket. This allows you to get through the smallest holes possible without, basically becoming a gaseous cloud or something, and is actually a really simple combination. Disguise Self is a level 1 ritual spell, of course, and Enlarge and Reduce is also a spell, level 2 transmutation in this case, so easy to run if you have a wizard or otherwise. Next, let's talk about rituals, and this comes from Susak in the comments of last time. It's all about different rituals and how they actually don't cost anything when you're not in combat, even though the majority of them are level 1 spells and like Detect Thoughts, which is level 2. As you can see, it says it's just costing an action and a ritual, because when you're not in combat, in Baldur's Gate specifically, you can just do this as many times as you want, which means you can take, say, longstrider and give yourself that extra movement speed, which will be helpful in all of the gameplay and combat. But then you can also choose to target allies and give them the buff, and then they'll have it until the long rest, which is incredible. But you can also upcast it to turn it into like a multi-target buff, so you don't have to do it one by one. You can just do it all in one go, which is really cool. The same can be said for Featherfall. As you can see, it's not actually costing me a spell slot, and we all have that perk, as well as everyone having longstrider. Same for Enhanced Leap, which is another one that we can target allies with and give them the same buff with, or Find Familiar, Detect Thoughts, and even Disguise. So through that, you're able to give yourself and your allies some pretty incredible buffs that will last until long rest, or can be incredible for moving around the map without actually any cost at all. There's no reason not to be running these if you have the opportunity to do so. Exploring the world with them is so much easier. Alright, here's another one that's just kind of funny, and it can even be a combination of the couple things we just mentioned. So, on my main character, I have this weapon and I have high strength, so I can leap really far. I think we've all experienced it when your main character or a couple of characters can make a jump, and then some of them, like Gale or someone else, they just can't make the same jump and they get left behind, and it's kind of annoying. There's two ways you can resolve that issue. So, yeah, basically pretend I can make a jump and Gale can't. What you can do with that same high strength character then is choose throw, and then choose the character that can't make that same leap, and then throw them the distance that they can't make them themselves. It's not going to be massive damage. It's definitely going to be a bit embarrassing and awkward for the two characters involved, but it is an option and a way to overcome that scenario. This is best done on small characters though that are easier to throw, so that's where Disguise Self comes in handy yet again. If I were to turn myself into a smaller character like a gnome, then I should be able to pick them up and throw them even further. Oh my god, that's so much further. That's like double the distance. So, in this case, maybe I'm dealing a bit too much damage to them, but this can really help resolve characters that can't make the same jump, and you don't want to waste a spell slot or something to get them there. Alright, this next one is one that I realized very recently. It's changed the way that I'm interacting with items when I'm looting, and maybe it'll be really useful to you. So, let's say I loot this barrel. Obviously, it's got fish in it, but let's pretend this fish is actually an arrow. Well, I have one person who's actually using ranged combat in my party, and that's Asterion. So what I've been doing is, instead of like swapping to Asterion and then running up to the barrel and picking up the arrow, instead of doing that, I'm taking whoever's actually currently looting and right-clicking it and going send to Asterion, and then it just goes straight to him and now he has it, so I don't have to manually swap. That's fine, but there's actually something a lot smoother and faster and just better that you can do, and it's take the item. Let's again pretend this is an arrow and it wants to go to Asterion, and I'm just going to drag it and give it to Asterion, and now he has it. So I don't have to do this right-clicking awkward faff. I can just very smoothly drag the items to whoever should have it. Like say I find some spell scrolls for Gale, I can just drag them to him. I don't have to do it this awkward way. I feel like I've evolved the way that I'm sending items to my allies from like awkwardly having them go loot it, right-clicking and sending to them, and now dragging them. It's just getting smoother and smoother. I wonder what I'm going to learn next. Next up, we have one from the comments by JB McClucken, who makes just a simple and pretty great suggestion in regards to pickpocketing with your thieves or, rogues or whatever. So we're going to take our rogue and ungroup them from the party, and we'll just put him over here in prep for the thievery. Then we're going to take our group and interact with this NPC. At that point, as you may know, you can click character select and just pick someone else in your group, such as someone that's not currently in that conversation like Asterion here, who can then just stealth, and because I've forced him to speak to me, I've forced the person to look a certain way, making stealthing up on them super easy, at which point I can then pickpocket them and find whatever useful items they have. A very clever trick for positioning and pickpocketing, but we have more to do with this, again from the comments. So this one comes from co-ops in the comments, and it's a genius way to basically steal gold really effectively. So let's take a vendor here, we're going to talk to them, we'll have a take a look. Okay, we see how much money they've got, 717. Let's once again swap to the person that I'd like to pickpocket with, and there's the 717. The problem with trying to pickpocket this is it's going to be a pretty hard check. So instead of trying to loot 717 gold in one go and that being a hard check, what you can incredibly do, thanks to Corpse telling me, is you hold shift and then move it, and then you can drag it and separate it. So suddenly a roll for 359 gold compared to 717, actually a lot easier. Again, let's just spread it out a little bit more, making smaller stacks of gold in their inventory. Once again, we'll go on Asterion and try to pickpocket, and now you can see that the gold stacks have changed. We've spread it out. So instead of having a hard check of whatever it was, like 12 or 13, now it's -1. That's really easy. Or even 4 on the 179 stack. It's so much easier to succeed and actually steal when you're trying to take smaller stacks of items or gold or whatever. So that's an absolute genius tip. Thank you for that. Moving on from that, we have one from PC574 who talks about how vendor gold actually resets. So let's say I want to trade with this guy and I'm going to trade him a bunch of stuff worth a lot of money. Now I can't keep vendoring to this guy because he doesn't have enough gold to even complete the transactions, which is annoying. Well, as it turns out, you can reset vendors and what amount of gold they have to trade with when you level up. So let's take Gale and just quickly level him up one singular level. Now he's leveled up, we can go back to the vendor and interact with him, and suddenly he's got gold again and he's ready to trade once more. This little tip then means that if you're planning on vendoring and doing a lot of vendoring, you can do it all with one vendor. Let's say every time you level up, you've just gone from 10 to 11. Instead of just instantly leveling, go, okay, cool, I can dump all of the stuff I've been gathering and make a bunch of gold from vendors. Go to a vendor, sell everything you've got, level up one character to reset them, sell everything else you've got, level up another character, keep selling, and so on. And that means it's a lot smoother to get all of that gold and get rid of all these junk items that you want to sell in one smooth process. Also, while we're here, we have another from the comments by Lance Clark. It's to do with that reputation attitude thing we talked about last time, where the higher the attitude, the more you'll actually get by selling and less cost on actually trading, which is well worth doing with a vendor you want to trade with. However, what I didn't mention in that, and I didn't realize at the time, is an obvious thing really, is your charisma stat affects the prices of items. So the higher your charisma, the cheaper he will sell these things for. So instead of just using your main character or whoever, you should take someone who actually has high charisma and buy the things for cheaper. Warlocks, bards, sorcerers, or whoever logically has high charisma based on their class and build. Have those ones being the ones that actually earn the attitude, because then buying and selling will be even more efficient in that case. And for the last thing in this video, it's something that I thought was more common knowledge than it must be, because I've seen the comment come up a little bit. So it was Caped Baldy who said in the comments that if you're swapping gear, there's a much faster way to do it. Instead of, say, manually finding the item that I want to equip, like, hey, I want to put this weapon on, okay, cool, is you can just click on the weapon slot. And as you can see, it shows every single weapon that I have currently available in our shared inventory. Now, this doesn't show what's in my camp chest, for example. I've got loads of stuff there, but it is what I can swap to and put on immediately because me and my party currently has this stuff. I thought this was a relatively well-known feature, but I have seen it come up a few times. So just letting you guys know that you can swap gear based on what's currently available to you as smoothly and as quickly as that, which is certainly a useful thing to know if you didn't. But there you have it, another round of interesting details or really useful tips to use in your own gameplay. I feel like I learn a lot each time I go to make one of these videos. It's really awesome. So again, a big thank you to everyone who's leaving ideas in the comments. On that note, if you do have more tips or things you think most people don't know that could be useful, then sure, drop it in the comments. It might just make it into another video. For now though, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for watching. See you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.